That's a high risk activity. That will be regulated, and that's where the EU AI Act would apply. With the introduction of AI, what we call artificial intelligence, that is when the systems start to learn and grow by themselves, you encounter new challenges. And that's where we are starting to talk about reliability of data as we talk about AI. That is, your data needs to be reliable and of very high quality. Plus, you need to introduce explainability into your AI system. All this, so the ethics, privacy, bias, hallucination, and workforce impact, what does it lead to? It leads to trust. Can I trust this system? Is this trustworthy? Will it take away my personal data? What will happen if I do this? What will happen if I do that? And then when we talk about AI, there's also shadow AI. We're always talking about AI system should do this, that, and all the requirements which we will talk. But who knows? There's a developer who's putting in some artificial intelligence type of logic in their system, and that's going under the radar. And the biggest challenge we have with AI systems is there are very high expectations. And we tend to have over expectations rather than realistic expectations.
It's early days of AI, right? It's like every new technology that has come. It was the same with the dot-com boom. It was the same before that with everything else. I wasn't born, but I'm thinking it's probably the same when the first commercial flight took off and people were worried about it. Inherently, the technology is going to go through its own growing up period. And for all of us as a species, this is a completely different level of disruption and innovation that's coming our way.
And my observation or forecast is that 5 years down the line, many countries, many states would also have a law similar to this or a regulation similar to this. So this is not something one-off. This is not something that is happening in EU. It'll happen everywhere.
Here is a classic example of some of the use cases that you may have heard about, you may be thinking about, you may be doing.
That's a high risk activity. That will be regulated. And that's where the EU AI Act would apply. And then there are some systems which are forbidden.
But I think that the key point here for people on my side of the fence is to have an understanding of what kind of requirements will emanate from it, right? What kind of things do we need to think about as we build systems, as we design features? And how do we then enforce them? How can we bring those kind of requirements and deliver on them, materialize them?
What starts to be a bit new is the record keeping. Now, in the EU GDPR, record keeping was always there in terms of the records of processing activity. But here, you have to do record keeping also in terms of maintaining a list of systems, keeping a log of what risks they create, and so on and so forth. Another important requirement is human oversight. So you don't want the mission impossible kind of scenario that AI has gone wild and nobody's in control. That's why they're recommending that there's always a possibility for human intervention or human oversight in whatever the AI system will do.
If you're a technology person in the room here, in the virtual room here, that is the challenge we are set up against, right? And now comes the big challenge of, all right, how do I translate it over? How do I actually do these things inside Salesforce so that I can deliver on these in a timely manner? We built this thing called GPT-5. It's an app exchange app that lets you bring your own AI model. And so we had to deal with all of these things that Punit was talking about earlier. We take out information. We also audit everything that's going out and in so that you have an ability to run quality assurance on it. So if you are writing stories for children's book, you probably want your AI to be very imaginative. But on the business side, if you're summarizing information, if you're doing other things, you may want to tweak your AI so that it is more realistic from a temperature standpoint.
You have consistently engage and dialogue and keep working with each other. And that's what governance is all about.
If you have leads, if you have prospects who are saying, opt me out, do not apply AI on my data. How do you do that in a system like Salesforce, where the whole idea is to bring in information on leads, prospects, all of those?
I think data residency is often misunderstood. No one in the EU or most laws is saying data should stay in that country. But what it is saying is data should stay in countries that often or that offer sufficient safeguards.
I know Salesforce does that with Trust Layer, very similar ideas, right? So the idea is all through this cycle, you're able to meet requirements by keeping your data on trusted platform like Salesforce. And then also on the AI side, you can tweak settings.
I think if you start by having a good, strong policy, process, and principles and interpret from the law and make it sustainable, that is the best way to start.
You can do that with Salesforce's AI Cloud. You can do that with GPT-5, and you can go ahead and build your own if you so desire. The good news is you have the opportunity to do it in at least a couple of different ways. And the better news here is there is a lot happening in the tech space to make some of these things easy. The bad news in all of this is there is work to be done here. A lot of this gets mired in either the marketing savviness of like, oh, you can just buy this today and it'll do everything for you. No, it won't. None of these technologies would from any vendor in the world, right?